Class is now in session. I'm Professor Hockey, and today we will be recapping Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals between the Dallas Stars and the Vegas Golden Knights. The Golden Knights were looking to recover after a pretty disappointing 3-2 overtime loss in Game 3. They were looking to once again tie up this series, this time at 2, and force a best-of-3 to end it off. But instead, it would be the Dallas Stars getting the victory here tonight by a score of 2-1 and putting themselves onto match point in Game 5 with the 3-1 series lead. This one starts off pretty slow, not any goals here through the first almost 30 minutes of this game before Alec Martinez pots one on the power play for the Golden Knights to take the 1-0 lead. However, it would be quickly responded to by Pavelski after a series of a couple of lucky bounces, I guess you could say, that really started to turn the game into the Stars' favor, because the first 30 or so minutes, it seemed to be all Golden Knights, heavily outshooting the Dallas Stars, but once this Pavelski goal went in, the Dallas Stars definitely rebounded significantly. They would then add a goal from Jamie Benn on their own power play, take the lead 2-1, and never relinquish said lead and take the win 2-1, as I said. Good news for the Dallas Stars. Obviously, the first thing that you should mention is Anton Khudobin. I brought this up back in Game 3. He played fantastically then. He played fantastically tonight. He's just looking so much better than what he was looking like earlier on in these playoffs against the Flames, against the Colorado Avalanche. He's making such solid positional saves. There's nothing insanely crazy. He's not just completely stealing these games for the Dallas Stars necessarily, but he's just been very good for them and definitely giving them a chance to win game in, game out. Another player who I should mention, this was a player I probably could have brought up back in Game 3 because he was very good then too, but here in Game 4, Jamie Benn, the captain for the Stars, having another very solid game. And this series has been so low scoring that each and every goal matters so much, and we see Benn with the game winner here tonight. He had a goal in the previous game in Game 3, the second one for the Dallas Stars there, and so he's just been a really great sort of leader for this Dallas Stars team on the ice, and definitely a big difference maker for them. I don't think he's been MVP necessarily, because Khudobin probably has to take that, but you could definitely say he's been their best forward, at least in these past couple of games. On the bad news side for the Dallas Stars, it should be brought up that you take a look at the one loss that they faced. It was a 3-0 loss, getting shut out. Their 3 wins, a 1-0 win, very precarious, especially since that goal came in the first few minutes of the first period, a 3-2 overtime victory, and now this 2-1 win. These are all very close games, all 1-goal victories. It's not a terrible thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that the Stars are going to relinquish this series lead and end up losing it in Game 7, but it does show that, the Golden Knights are sort of on the brink of being able to win some of these games. A bounce here or bounce there. Maybe if Pavelski doesn't get these lucky bounces that lead to the game-tying goal, maybe this is a game that the Golden Knights actually eventually end up winning. So the Stars do have to be very careful that the same thing that happened in the second round does not happen here again, because recall back in the second round, four teams took a 3-1 series lead, and it was only the Lightning who actually managed to finish off their series in 5. Each and every other series ended up going the full Game 7. The Stars were one of them. They had the 3-0 series lead. They let the Avalanche back in, and while they ended up winning the Game 7 in overtime, that's not a situation they want to let happen. So we need a bit more of a forceful performance from the Dallas Stars to finish off the Knights. On the Golden Knights side, the good news for them, I guess you could say, is that the team is playing okay. Right, it's not like it's going terribly for them. The offense is not great, but it's not terrible. The defense has looked pretty solid. Robin Lehner has looked quite solid, but that is where the problem really lies here for the Golden Knights, and that's really the bad news. You take a look at history, you take a look at previous Stanley Cup winners, you have, let's say, the Washington Capitals with Kuznetsov and Ovechkin just playing at another level offensively. You have, for the Pittsburgh Penguins, Crosby, Malkin, Kessel playing at such high levels. You have Los Angeles Kings, Jonathan Quick, carrying the team with his insane goaltending through those couple of Stanley Cup victory years for them. You have on the Blackhawks side Taves and Kane and Patrick Sharp all looking fantastic, and even not just top players. You take a look at that 2010 series. This is just one that I could pull off an example, but there are definitely many more examples. The 2010 series between the Blackhawks and the Sharks. That series, the two best players for the Blackhawks, you could say, were Antti Niemi, who was maybe a average goaltender at the time, certainly nowhere near the top of the top of the game of goaltenders, as well as Dustin Byfuglien, not a top forward for that team. Both of those players were the 2 MVPs in that series for the Blackhawks against the Sharks, and that's what you need when you're a Stanley Cup victory team. You need not just fantastic players like Taves and Kane, whatever, stepping up and playing exceptionally well, but you need the depth guys also to have games like this, and we've seen this from the Stars. Gurianov with that 4-goal performance after falling behind 3-0 to the Calgary Flames. Kiviranta with the hat trick in Game 7 against the Colorado Avalanche. We're seeing Khudobin pull off some great performances here in this series. We're seeing Jamie Benn with these Game 3, Game 4 performances playing very, very well. And on the Golden Knights side, there's just not really much of that. Shea Theodore is probably the player who has come the closest in that area for the Golden Knights, but otherwise, Mark Stone, Marcia So, William Karlsson, Riley Smith, these players haven't been terrible. They haven't been offensive black holes or anything like that, but ever since like halfway through that Vancouver Canucks series, these players have just been decent. They've just been pretty good. Nobody's really stepping up here for the Golden Knights. You take a look at their goaltender as well, Robin Lehner. He's been good. He's not been costing them any games, but he also hasn't really been stealing them any games. Besides, 14 save shutouts, 16 save shutouts. There hasn't really been a game where I can say, wow, Robin Lehner really getting the victory here for the Golden Knights. There just hasn't really been anything like that. It feels like these players are giving their 80% effort or something like that, and then thinking, well, okay, boys, we tried. We'll get them next time. Well, the Dallas Stars really seem to just be wanting this more. But that will do it for this recap. In terms of my prediction, I had said the Golden Knights would win it in 5 games. Clearly, that can't happen. And while these games have been close, meaning the Golden Knights could technically make this comeback and end up winning it in 7, it seems more and more unlikely as days pass that the Stars will be able to move on to the Stanley Cup Finals for the first time in a while. Class dismissed.